Hey everyone, and welcome. So when you look at the latest Next in AI newsletter, you see these two incredible forces pulling AI's future in what feel like opposite directions. On one hand, AI is getting smaller, faster, and ready to live right on your phone. And on the other, it's getting bigger, smarter, and more autonomous. So let's dive in and figure out how these two trends are actually two sides of the same coin.
So, if you're building in this space, or maybe investing in it, you've got to ask yourself, what are the big currents we should be paying attention to? Where's the whole industry really heading?
And the answer, at least according to the newsletter, is pretty clear. It all boils down to this fascinating collision, this story of efficiency meeting autonomy. It's the drive to make AI smaller and faster colliding with the quest to make it smarter and more capable.
All right, so here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with how AI is getting leaner, then jump into this new agentic frontier. After that, we'll check out the expanding AI toolkit, the role of the open source ecosystem, and then we'll wrap it all up by connecting the dots to see what might be next. Okay, first up, this whole idea that AI is getting leaner and faster. And look, this is about so much more than just cutting costs. It's about completely rewriting the roles on where and how AI shows up in our world. For a while, it felt like a horsepower race, right? Who could build the biggest, most massive model in the cloud? But now, we're seeing this really strategic shift. It's not about replacing those giant brain models. Instead, companies like OpenAI are creating these smaller, specialized ninja models. They're built for speed and efficiency to do specific jobs really, really well, right there on the edge. And this isn't just a one-off thing. It's happening all over the place. You've got OpenAI's new, smaller models, Hugging Face pushing these compact models for local AI. And then you've got companies like Together AI, who are rethinking the whole architecture with things like state space models. These are totally different under the hood, and they're built for one thing: pure speed. And of course, the hardware has to keep up. And it is. Take a look at this. NVIDIA's got a chip that can spot a face in under a millisecond. I mean, just try to wrap your head around that. That's not just fast, that's blink and you miss it fast. And that is what makes real-time AI on your phone or in your car a reality, not just science fiction. So why does all this matter? What's the bottom line here? It's simple. Efficiency blows the doors wide open for the entire AI market. It takes AI from being this huge, expensive thing locked away in a data center and puts it, well, everywhere. In our cars, our factories, and our pockets. Okay, so AI is getting small and fast enough to live on our devices. That's part one. But part two is the really mind-bending question. What do we want it to do once it's there? And that brings us to the other side of the coin, this massive new push into what we're calling the agentic frontier. All right, let's just pause and make sure we're on the same page. Agentic AI is a bit of a buzzword, so what does it actually mean? Well, think of it this way. A chatbot is like a call center agent who can only answer the one question you just asked. An agent is like a project manager. You give it a high-level goal, like plan my family's summer vacation, and it goes off, does the research, books the flights, finds the hotels. It can reason, plan, and act on its own. And this isn't some far-off future stuff. The foundations are being built as we speak. You've got Mistral AI dropping Forge for companies to build their own agents. AWS is already putting out playbooks for it, and the research is getting wild. They're finding these agents can have, well, quirks. They call it non-standard errors, which is the fancy way of saying they can have different takes on the same problem, kind of like two human analysts would. So the billion-dollar question is, how do you actually make these agents smart? Well, new research is giving us a blueprint. It's basically a two-part recipe. First, anticipatory planning. The agent has to think about the finish line, not just what's right in front of it. Then, coherent action, where it's not about the best next move, it's about the best sequence of moves. It's really the difference between playing checkers and playing chess. Okay, so we've got these two tectonic plates shifting: efficiency and autonomy. But underneath all that, the whole landscape is just exploding with new tools and ideas. So let's do a quick flyby of the expanding AI toolkit that's available right now. I mean, just look at the range here. It's pretty staggering. On one end, you have projects like Chronos trying to give AI a real long-term memory, which is a huge piece of the puzzle for making agents actually work. Then you have hyper-specialized models for surgery. You see that efficiency theme popping up again with robotics. And then there's work on what's basically the holy grail, computing on encrypted data. The innovation is just happening on so many fronts at once. And what's really cool is how fast all this super complex research gets turned into tools that pretty much anyone can use. You see stuff like Unsloth Studio popping up, which lets you fine-tune these incredibly powerful models with a visual interface. No PhD required. This is exactly how the magic gets out of the lab and into the real world. And sometimes, all this creativity leads to something just amazing. Get this. A team trained an AI on the sound of birds chirping, and from that, it learned how to recognize the calls of whales. It's this fantastic reminder that at their core, these are pattern-finding machines, and they can find harmonies in the universe that we might completely miss. Now, of course, none of this incredible progress happens in a silo, right? There's an engine driving so much of this forward, and that's the open source community. It is the absolute collaborative backbone of AI. And if there's a capital city of the open source AI world, it's got to be Hugging Face. Their latest report basically just puts on paper what everybody in the field feels in their gut. The pace of development is just relentless. It's an absolute fire hose of innovation, all fueled by a global community sharing its work. And don't think for a second this is just a hobbyist thing. The biggest players in the game, like NVIDIA, are all in. They're using open source tools to solve one of the hardest problems in robotics, making what works in a simulation actually work in real life. It just goes to show open source is the great accelerator. All right, let's pull the camera back. We've talked about efficiency. We've talked about autonomy. We've looked at the new tools and the community powering it all. So let's connect the dots. What's the real big picture here? Where is all of this heading? All this money, all this brain power, all this code. What's the end game? And here's the key takeaway from the newsletter. We are witnessing a massive convergence. It's a feedback loop. Cool tech gets big money, which creates even cooler tech. But the really critical part is that the technology, the economics, and now the policy are all tangled up. You absolutely cannot understand one without the others anymore. And that leaves us with one final and maybe the most important question of all, one that researchers at DeepMind are wrestling with right now. As these systems get more and more capable, as they start to live on our phones and act as our agents, how do we even score the game anymore? It's no longer just about task performance. The real question is, how do we actually measure our progress toward a truly general intelligence? That's a thought to chew on from this edition of Next in AI. Thanks for diving in with us.